your calling, your dream, that inner fire in you was never a conference call. It is your unique personal calling, as unique as your dental records and your fingerprints. We want to be clear that it's the rhythm of your energy that is your strong suit. That's where your secret sauce is, if you will. It is not a flaw. It is an expression of your own inner truth. How to chase big dreams without melting down. Hi, friends. It's Dianne here at Someone Gets Me, having an interesting afternoon. And I thought I would share with you some tips about chasing your bigger dreams, understanding your bigger vision without burning out or melting down. Often I deal with a lot of people who have empath distress disorder, as I call it, where we take in so much energy and so many things, and the vision seems so large and intense that we often can burn ourselves out with a sense of urgency to get it all done by lunchtime or at the end of the weekend for sure. So I want to talk a little bit about how to go after that vision, that deep ache within you, and still maintain your sanity, still maintain being grounded and feeling effective and happy in the world. And so that's what today's episode is about. So I suggest that maybe we all do this. We grab our tea, our coffee, and we sit back and we relax for a moment as we chat about how to chase our big dreams without melting down, without burning out, because it's very important for us to do that as neurodivergent people. Now, some of this content you will find reflected in different ways in my upcoming book, Care for the Neurodivergent Soul. So if this content resonates with you, keep checking back here or on my website, and we will make sure that you know when the book is out. But I'm working on it now, and we'll see what happens. And being an author is one of my big dreams. My maternal grandmother was an author, and I love writing. And so sometimes I can put so much pressure on myself to get a project done that burnout or meltdown could happen. So this is something that I think I'll probably listen to my own words while I'm sharing with you. So one of the things that's very important is to realize that as a neurodivergent person, you're naturally a big dreamer. You naturally see things in a bigger way than most people around you, maybe even different than your own family or people who say they understand you. They might get a part of it and they think they get it, but your heart knows that there's an ache for something more, that's close, but it's not quite it. Now, I always remind people that your calling, your dream, that inner fire in you was never a conference call. It is your unique personal calling, as unique as your dental records and your fingerprints. So when you look around, like many people do, especially in the neurotypical world, thinking that other people have that same dream or that same calling, we're not going to find anyone like that. We may find people with similar dreams and similar callings and things that intersect with ours beautifully, but it's not exactly the same. So part of our dilemma is the fact that we are ahead of our time. In my experience, it's about 2 to 5 years, and our dreams have more depth, maybe in nuance, or they're more vivid, or they have a lot of power behind them that other people may or may not be able to totally resonate with. So the cost of this is often burnout or isolation. And sometimes we just go within and we don't tell anybody anything, or we hide, which has its own negative consequences if we do it too much. And if we get empath distress disorder, which is a term I used a long time ago with some clients of mine who are very empathic, and they just take on all the distress in the people around them, and then they don't feel well, or they're tired, or they get sick, or they struggle because they're taking on all of the issues and problems of everyone around them. And so I called it empath distress disorder. So neurodivergent adults, which strong empathy, giftedness, ADHD, all of these things come together in a cluster, and we can carry an ability to have an immense vision. We can be able to see things beyond where we are, and often beyond any of the teams we work with. I know in a lot of the business settings I've been in over my lifetime and in some of my clients in the business world, the ideas that we're coming up with are far ahead of the people that we're engaging with. So I've been told before by other gifted groups that some of my ideas about giftedness and addiction were just way off base, and I was kind of dismissed. And then 3 years later, guess what happened? That very same person, and actually there's a few of them, who started talking about the very same thing I was proposing 3 years before. And to them, it was revolutionary. And so when we realize that our immense visions, our deep visions, bring something with them that has sustainability, that has maybe a path or a way of seeing something that is beyond what a lot of other people can see, but yet we can sense it and see it in our mind's eye, then we want to realize that that dilemma is real. And so if you're a neurodivergent person who's got a big vision and you can feel it kind of vibrating in your soul, I feel it in my bones. I get goosebumps a lot. And if you watch this show, you've seen me go like this because I'm getting goosebumps with the feeling of what's coming through that I want to share with you. And so what happens is if we're not in a safe environment, then we often will shut down or we'll put, I kind of think of it as dampers on everything. And then that causes internal angst, maybe anxiety or worry or stress. Some people that I work with have digestive issues or heart issues, their inner organs struggle with having to put dampers on their own expression because of lack of safety. Now, a lot of gifted people are bullied in the workplace and bullied in school. And that's for another podcast, but it comes into play here a bit, because if you are the one with the immense vision or bright ideas and people around you start to make fun of you or make your environment unsafe by passive threats or humiliation or being dismissed, then that lack of safety creates often an internal experience that's not very pleasant. And a lot of times that other person that's creating the lack of safety has some of those bullying characteristics, where they suddenly have to correct everything you say. I've worked in situations where people think they're hearing what I'm saying because they're running their own agenda. They didn't hear the whole thing, and then they tried to correct or say or add. But what they said was irrelevant because they didn't hear the whole thing. Or maybe they were unable to understand the meaning of whatever it was I was trying to share. I've seen it in corporate business settings where I'm sitting with boards and helping people kind of translate. I was in Hollywood one time working with the client out there in a post-sound recording studio. And so we had the business people and we had the creative geniuses and we had the artists and then we had all the technicians all in the room. And we were talking about a really big project for them. And I was called in to help mentor and help bridge the communication barrier between the investor, CEO type business people and the creative geniuses. The technicians were most frustrated because they were getting two sets of information. The visionary geniuses could see the vision of the project. The business people were looking at the bottom line. And that was two separate messages to the technicians who were actually pulling off the vision. And so these people were all chasing their big dreams. All of them had this immense, intense experience within them. But there was all of this different way of communicating. So they brought me in to help translate things and help bridge some of that gap. And eventually we got to it. We got to where everybody could use the same language and speak together and understand what was happening. And then the big dream could surface and could start to be realized without anyone melting down anymore. Because when I was called, there were some people that were on the verge of a meltdown because they weren't being heard in a way that was important to them. Yet they thought they were being not only not heard, but they were being misunderstood and demeaned somehow. That was not the intention of the other people. It felt unsafe to the visionaries because that's what it felt like to them. But that's not what the other intention was. The intention of the other people was to speak in more linear terms. And those are two different mindsets. So once we could bridge those pathways and people could see more fully, all right, this is the bigger vision. and everybody held the same vision for the success of the project. They were just looking at it from different angles, which I call that fluid viewing, where we look at different things from different angles. And so therefore, we want to appreciate all the different angles. Neurodivergent people are able, right, to look at things from varied angles. We're able to see the nuance in things a lot of people cannot see. So if you're the one with the big vision, then dreaming about it and experiencing it, envisioning it, that's not the problem. The problem isn't even how to squash it or regulate it. The problem that we want to address in this show is how to care for that vision, how to lovingly take the vision that's burning in your heart, that feeling, that inner guidance that's trying to show up, that's trying to emerge through you, and have that vision become something that's sacred and taken care of so that it doesn't become a burden, so that you don't get burned out trying to go for your vision. I think it's so sad that so many people either get stuck because they're burned out or they're afraid to go after their success because the world kind of teaches a lot of mixed messages around that. And so this conversation is about understanding that you have a deep ache in your heart to bring something to the world. That ache is not there by accident. It is there on purpose. You have a mighty purpose and you were born with that ache. How you express that in the world is 100% up to you. That's our free will, right? You can express it any way you want to. You can do whatever it is, as long as it serves the greater good and it answers the call of that ache. So it might require doing projects. It might require talking to different people. It might require caring for yourself with retreats or quiet time in order to more clearly see what it is that you want to do. But it also requires internal regulation. It requires internal emotional and nervous system regulation. So if we've got a lot of anxiety or we got a lot of worry or we got a lot of pain or fear going on and we're all cattywampus and nervous, that's going to kind of put static in between you and that vision. The goal is not to have that static. The goal is to have clarity and connection. So we want to stay regulated. We want to learn how to do that by meditating and grounding. I love acupuncture or floating in the water. I love that. There's all kinds of ways, or you could even go and hug trees. In fact, I was helping this doctor one time, and I was teaching him how to hug trees, and he was very intellectual. He was an orthopedic surgeon, and he was very cognitive, and he had a hard time with feelings. And I said, well, just go hug a tree, and just give yourself permission to get over what other people are going to think and go out and just kind of like put your arms around a tree and just let yourself feel the nature embrace, right? Where you're hugging the tree and it's kind of there for you, and allow yourself to experience that exchange, even if it's for just a few minutes. Just give yourself a different experience. That's all I was going after. Well, a few days later, he comes in with a couple of his buddies and they're like, tell her. And I'm like, what? And then like, no, tell her. And he was kind of embarrassed. His face was a little red and he was an older gentleman. So you could tell that he wasn't sure about all this. He goes, I did it, Diane. I hugged a tree. And I was so happy that he took a risk and came outside of the rigid view he had of himself. And then his friend said, well, tell her the rest of the story. And I said, what? He goes, it was a telephone pole. So there was a wooden telephone pole soaked with creosote, and he counted that as hugging a tree. I said, did you feel any life in that? He goes, no, I didn't feel very much. I said, well, maybe the next time hug a live tree, right? He was so disconnected from his experience of his body and his nervous system that hugging a tree and hugging a telephone pole to him experientially felt like they were the same thing, when in fact they're not. So there's so many ways that we can grow and learn and become more aware of who we are and our connection and how we operate. We want to have these intentions for our experience of the world forefront in the way we act. Now, We also want to have good boundaries. Boundaries, people sometimes think are like big walls or anger. I'm going to set boundaries with you, and people yell at their family members. And that's one thing that people talk about. But really, what's important is boundaries within your dream. Like, one of my questions is what I'm about to do going to get me where I say I want to go? Is the action I'm about to take going to get me where I say I want to go? And so if I'm trying to drive from North Carolina to Florida, I'm probably not going to go north. I need to go south if I want to get to Florida, unless I'm going to go all the way around the globe. So I want to think about is what my actions saying, what they're doing, does it line up with what my stated goal or my stated vision is? So many times we shrink or we let ourselves get distracted. Those of us with ADHD, we can get distracted 900 times from Sunday before we actually start taking action toward the expansion and the realization of our dreams and our goals. And if we want to realize our dreams and goals and see that vision come to life, then we want to take care of it, and we want to have nice boundaries around it so it's protected. It's like putting on a coat in the wintertime. That coat is a boundary between us and the cold, right? It's about having a safe container to nurture and grow and care for the vision that's within your heart. It's giving you a chance to have novelty as a way of experiencing and experimenting and paying attention to the fun nuances of the neat ideas you have along the way. It's about realizing that if we let ourselves feel too hurried or too urgent, that we're actually echoing old trauma or old separation from who we really are. And so when we start pushing too far, too fast, and we start going after it like that, we're missing the point. We are pushing through and responding to old trauma, which is separation. And that's not what our soul wants us to do. Our soul, caring for our neurodivergent soul, is about understanding that your inner landscape, your inner life is rich and beautiful and amazing. And it's right on time. It's not meant to be hurried. It's not meant to be separated and parceled out. It's not meant for you to ignore your own inner language, your own inner landscape. It's meant for you to have honor and respect. Yeah, that's what it's meant to do. So we want to rest in the fact that we feel our own life rewards simply by attaining and taking action toward the vision. Like, some people think that we get our reward, whatever that is, whatever we're seeking at the end. Well, for neurodivergent people, that's not 100% true. That part is true, but there's other parts. Some of the other parts are the dopamine we receive and the reward we receive along the way from our successful completion of different tasks or different steps, where we allow ourselves to build our vision, build our momentum, build our idea in a way that suits our dream. Some people are going to be more methodical and linear, other people are going to be more circular and visionary, and some people are going to mix them, and there's no wrong answer. The correct answer is what aligns with you. The correct way to look at all of this is say, what's unique to me when I'm chasing my dream? So when you put your hand on your heart and you say, okay, what is unique to me? What's unique to my nervous system, to my processing, to my sensitivities, to my intuition? What is unique to me that allows me to care deeply for this vision or dream that I have, so that it does not become a burden? In fact, it becomes the inner light and the inner fire that drives me forward. How do we do that, right? And so we want to honor that process so we don't melt down, because we will melt down. The way we don't melt down is we follow our energy. And it's so funny because I have two people I'm working with right now who are desperately trying to fit into these boxes. Somebody shared with them about how to do their calendar, how to schedule their day. And they can do it for 2 or 3 days, and then the tempo loses, and then their pattern loses. And the same thing would happen to me if I tried it. Because for neurodivergent people, often our pattern might change a little bit day to day, or our pattern might be conditional with how rested we are, or what's on the calendar for that day, or the temperature, or how much daylight there is. I get more done in the summer because there's more daylight than in the winter. And I have other neurodivergent people that I know that get way more done in the winter because of the darkness, and they do way less in the summer because it's hot. I'm the opposite. So we want to be clear that it's the rhythm of your energy that is your strong suit. That's where your secret sauce is, if you will. It is not a flaw. It is an expression of your own inner truth. So when you allow that inner truth to show up and you honor, this is how my system works, and you begin to create an environment and a space where your system is safe and can work at a rhythm with the proper boundaries, you not only bring that vision to life, but you don't burn out. You don't melt down because you're caring for yourself in more of a cyclical way that's more alive. And so we want to pay attention, I think, to making sure that we're carrying our vision with care. I imagine like having it in my hands in this precious box, or maybe it's just laying in my hands, my vision. And how can I care for the message it's bringing, the feeling I'm having, the impact that my human self desires to bring? And so my only response to the universe is my answer is yes. In fact, as I'm speaking to you now, I created a quilt wall hanging that says inspire, because it's so important to remind me, to remind my being that inspiration is one of those parts of my vision that is ever evolving and ever changing and bringing depth and nuance to all that I do, whether it's writing my book or talking to you here on this podcast or working with my clients or just having everyday life, talking to people on my team. It's all part of it. It's all that beautiful tempo that I have to honor. And I want to encourage you to honor your own tempo. And here's what I can tell you. It's not like everybody else's. It's not. You're not going to fit into a pre-made box that somebody else has designed for you. You will fit into the care for, the beautiful, nuanced life that follows the tempo that you are meant to live. Now, if you try to pretend that you can fit into boxes that you don't belong in, or you mask things, right, and act like your things are okay when they're not, that can create this really chronic sense of overwhelm. And masking has a whole nother cascading effect on us that I don't find very attractive, because I think we want authenticity, right? And so for me, I would rather have somebody say, boy, I'm really struggling, or let me take a break, let me take a couple deep breaths and let's get back to work then. Or how about a different kind of tempo with more pauses in it? I would rather work with somebody who will respect that in me and allow me to respect that in them than to pretend like everything's fine when it's not, when they need a break or need some kind of care, because we're often rewarded by how productive we are. And as a neurodivergent person, our productivity and the care for our soul need to be aligned, because if that's disconnected, we often lose sleep and feel really kind of stressed out, and eventually we burn out. And if we get burned out, eventually we get physically sick, and we don't want that. So our goal here is to allow ourselves to follow our vision, follow that heart's desire, that deep ache within you, and allowing yourself to work with that and allow that to come forward in a nurtured way so that you're not burdened and overstressed. And so you can enjoy the ride, right? We enjoy the ride when our boundaries are intentional, not squishy. We enjoy the ride when we're regulated in our nervous system. We enjoy the ride when we release the idea that we have to be in a hurry and everything's urgent. We enjoy the ride when we remember that all forms of rest are required for our success. They're not a reward for working hard. It's the opposite. They're a requirement, not a reward. And we also can allow that deep ache and that vision to show up at whatever pace it's meant to. Typically, it's slower than our brain thinks, and that's great because the world has to be ready for us. So I know that I often think of ideas 2 to 5 years ahead of my time. So if I was in a hurry all the time, I would be so far ahead that I would be getting met with wall after wall after wall. Whereas if I really focus on the organic flow of things and check the signs for people being open to the ideas or whatever the vision is, and I have alignment in my mind and my heart and my soul, when I have those things, I create safety. When I allow myself to be in a safe place, my intuition will guide me. And that guidance helps me land at the expression of my vision. So it's a lot different than a lot of what we're taught in Western culture. I think about work, 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 go fast, push through, no pain, no gain. Those are true in some isolated situations. But when it comes to bringing your bigger, immense, great, unique vision to life, that I believe takes pace, and it takes being aware, it takes understanding, it takes compassion, kindness, action, integrity. It takes all of those things. It takes allowing yourself to rest, and it takes allowing yourself to practice receiving the very thing you're seeking. Because a lot of people can work really hard towards something, and then when the reward comes, they don't want to take it. And so we got to practice receiving along the way. So I hope this has helped you. I know it's inspired me because I have great visions, and I know that the book Care for the Neurodivergent Soul is a work of love and a work of progress. It's got a lot of things in it. The people who are starting to read it with me and help me edit it are telling me it's really great. So that's great feedback to hear, but I still have things I'm working on with it because I had more ideas this morning. So sometimes your vision just keeps evolving. And so we have to know there's an organic timing to bringing it to fruition. After all, my very first book, How to Quit Anything in 5 Simple Steps, I was already ready to publish it, but I kept having this nagging little thought in my head that not yet, not yet. I'm like, well, why not yet? I have it all done. Why not? And I was so happy to get my first book ready. And then I tell the story in the book actually, but I finally got that thought in my head told me no, that was saying no, no, no. Finally I said yes. Well, I found out later that I was getting that feeling because an ex-client of mine from several years before was actually having a real difficult time and ended up actually taking their own life. And they struggled with substance abuse. And so I was able to use some of their process to help people understand the power in choosing a life free of the chasing of mood altering situations. So once that happened and I came down from that information, I could see then that story, that process was vital to this new book that I was ready to publish, but it didn't have that information in it. Now it does. So we never know until we can feel that inner yes. So allow yourself to play with your vision, to see it emerging in different ways. Allow yourself to take the time for the care and nuance of something that's important to you, because it will come to fruition right on time. It always does. Everything in nature happens right on time, even if our human brain says it's different. So I hope that this episode has served you well. And of course, you can always make a get to know you call with me if you'd like to, or you can read the book when it comes out. And hopefully you walk away from this episode feeling inspired to follow your vision while not burning out. So remember, everybody, to keep your face to the sun so the shadows fall behind you, because you are a rock star. You're here on purpose with a mighty purpose. So go out there and let your light shine. And remember that your vision is sacred and beautiful, and allow yourself to nurture it with the most care and reverence that you can. Until the next episode of Someone Gets Me, this is Dianne saying, be well.